want to say a brief word about two concepts in the readings today, the gospel and the second reading. And there's a ton one could say about these things, so I'll just give you a bare outline or something, make one message. But the word glory and glorify is in the gospel. And that word it's an interesting word, concept. We use the word holy to refer to kind of fancy language, but this is from one of the theological dictionaries, the inaccessible center of God, of who God is. That's God's holiness. And so we don't have access to that. What we see of God, the way God manifests his holiness, his godliness, is by his glory. So glory is the manifestation of God and God's holiness. And always with the word glory and glorify carries the concept of worship. And indeed, even the word God, we don't think of this very often, but it's an ancient root, ancient Aryan root, actually, that refers to something being poured out, a veneration, like a libation or a sacrifice. I'll leave that there just for a minute and go quickly to the second reading. People still ask, and it's fine, I think about it too, but they still ask, how is it possible that Jesus was imperfect? Because the author here says that Jesus was made perfect through his suffering. It doesn't mean there that Jesus had any flaws or had to be perfected in any way. Again, I'll save you all the roots. I find this stuff fascinating, but I know not everyone does. But the Greek word there, teleos, can refer to a goal or destination, but it also refers to the Hebrew concept of, as one scholar says, filling your hands, which seems like an odd thing. But it refers back to when a man, an Israelite, was ordained a priest. They didn't use that word ordained, but... And so in other words, what they think it means is that the sacrifice was put in his hands for the first time, and that was the completion of his ordination was offering the sacrifice. In other words, you weren't just ordained and then one day you would do a sacrifice. It's similar in a sense of our ordination. I know many of you have been to an ordination mass, but the newly ordained priest actually then takes part and celebrates at his ordination mass, And so the ordination is completed by the offering of the sacrifice. And so what it really refers to there is that Jesus was, his process of becoming priest was completed with his offering on the cross. Just a reminder that is sacrifice, first and foremost, right? And so, in other words, Jesus becomes or finishes, it's hard to use the exact language for it, but high priest when he offers this sacrifice. And so what we have here kind of wound around are these tightly knit things of God and veneration, worship, and Christ's sacrifice. And in other words, what we have, although individually we can worship, right? I can give individual worship to God just by praising him, using words, singing, whatever, offering something. But the heart of our faith, the Christian faith, is the communal worship that we do, and that we call liturgy, right? And what is so important about the liturgy, the Mass, in particular, is that we offer together, not just that we're offering something, but we're offering this perfect sacrifice. And so a lot of times we can think of, we still use the phrase, the Sunday obligation, and that's okay, but to many people it's an off-putting phrase, I guess, or the word obligation. But to look at the Sunday worship in a fuller way is to see not that I'm just obeying some rule, but that I'm actually doing the highest thing I can possibly do, is recognizing God as God, right? And then worshiping God, which is what worship is, recognizing God, and offering God the only possible thing that's objectively worthy of him. You know? And while our individual acts of worship are valuable to us, and I assume important to God, what collects them all, and again, we use different languages as I was growing up and even today, but the idea was that not just we come to go to Mass and satisfy this obligation, but when we come to Mass, we're actually gathering together all of our individual acts of worship through the week, whatever they might be, things, sacrifices we've made for God, prayers that we've made to God, even gestures, just making a sign of the cross is an act of individual worship, acknowledging God, and in particular, God as Trinity, right? But when we come to Mass, what we do is bring these individual acts of worship and then offer them together, right? We're not just a bunch of people sitting in our own pews, right? We are a congregation, those who have been brought together, and we bring our individual acts of worship. We come and then we offer them together along with the perfect offering that Jesus made to the Father. I don't know if looking at Sunday worship, Sunday Mass, that way helps you. When I look at it that way, it helps me because the idea of, it reminds me of the significance of what we do here. And it is an obligation, right? It's a commandment. But it's not because God needs us to worship, right? He's not some arbitrary person up there saying, I think I wanted to do this today or that today. He commands the things that are good for us. You know? And so he commands it to remind us how important this is and how valuable this is. And so this is why it's good for us even to think about Sunday worship, our liturgy, our Mass, during the week. And that's the other thing it helps me to do, is I think, okay, this is something that I'll bring with me next Sunday, and offer that with everyone. And we don't know each other's acts of worship, right? We don't know what each of us is offering. It doesn't matter. It's for God, And so you see how the whole week can lead up to the Sunday worship, right? And again, another way to perhaps have us think about this in a different way. Not just it's an obligation, but it's an opportunity to bring all these acts during the week and then offer them with my brothers and sisters in Christ and with Christ himself. So just offer that to you. I hope thinking about that might help you in your attitude towards Mass and help you as you talk to other people about the value of Sunday Mass. It might be your children, might be your spouse, might be your cousin, I don't know, or your neighbor or something. Or somebody just ask you, why do you do that? You know? Hey, you want to do this? No, I'm going to Mass then. Really? And it help you explain.